I quit.
Right.
And it's really pretty simple. It's one of two things. And he was a doubter. I already had my doubts, but all of a sudden when I realized that we were on two different rivers and really tackling an industry, the beverage industry, but in with two different sets of initiatives, that's when I said, okay, he's going to do his thing. He has a lot more money than I do, so I don't need to give him all of the reasons why I'm doing this. Instead, I'm just going to listen and just do my thing. And that's what I did. And so I often that story in particular, I share with people that sometimes when you think that everybody has got a better resume than you, or they've got a lot more experience, or they can solve all your problems, just wave their magic wand. Sometimes they actually can't, because you have a vision that is ahead of them. And one other piece that I really try and emphasize in the book too is that if you're starting a company, that's like climbing a mountain, right? And
Yeah.
you've got a new product, but in addition to starting a company, what I was doing, which I realized a couple of months into this, and really the education piece comes into play and is so important, is that I was starting a new category, which was unsweetened flavored water. And so the majority of consumers that I was talking to said, "Oh, why do we need that? Why do we need unsweetened flavored water?" Or they would say, "What's it sweetened with?" And I'd
Right.
say, "It's unsweetened." And they'd say, "But what's it sweetened with? Why can't I have Diet Coke? Why can't I have a vitamin water?" Which, by the way, at that time there was no diet versions of even vitamin water. And so, again, when you are ahead of other companies and you think there's no one in the market doing this, the scary thing about that is that there's an education piece that cannot be forgotten,
Right.
because when you are ahead, and you will hear this from Steve Jobs, you will hear this from Mark Zuckerberg, I mean, you name it, people who have started categories of, categories within tech or categories within beverage. It just takes time for the consumer to catch up. It takes time and money, right? And you cannot force feed that into a consumer. The consumer needs to discover it, and they need to catch up. And so that is what I decided at that moment after that conversation with the Coke executive too. He just didn't get it. He didn't get why it was needed. And something that I think is really also very important is that oftentimes these large companies within industries, they're terrible at innovating. That's why they ultimately go and buy companies, because they're not taught to actually think big and have vision. They're actually taught to execute and save money, which is very different than starting a new category.
Absolutely. Now look what's followed since Hint. Don't let anyone crush your dreams. Whether you want to get healthy, start a company, break an addiction, um, find a new career, or just grow in life. Kara Goldin's book, Undaunted: Overcoming Doubts and Doubters. You have to read it from start to finish. It's such a fast read. There's so many great stories in here, and the journey to Hint and your story is just it's mind blowing. This is a book that everybody should read. Especially every college kid out there who's just starting out. It's just got so many great. It tells you not to hold back. Like you said, don't let anyone crush your dreams. Keep going, keep putting it out there, keep showing up. I mean, you went with zero experience in the beverage industry to using your own health transformation to motivating you to do this. Turning your love of unsweetened flavored water into one of the most successful businesses of our time. Why the name Hint? How did that come about?
So are you from the East Coast?
I was born and raised in Miami, but I live in the East Coast.
So I asked that because I married a guy, my still husband,
Your husband.
Theo, who's from New York. So my idea for a name was Wawa. initially because I had been home with my kids for a couple of years and I was trying to get my kids to drink water because they were drinking way too much juice. And so
That,
I said, give them some Wawa. And
of
so when I
course.
came up with this idea that for this company, Wawa, my husband's an intellectual property lawyer, and he said, the first
No.
thing he could think of was this little chain in Pennsylvania called Wawa. And he said, okay, I know you're not going to listen to me. You made some money at AOL and you're going to do whatever you want to do, but just listen to me on this one thing. There's this company in Pennsylvania that
Yeah.
I get, you grew up in Arizona. And so, but I didn't know, I had no idea. And I was like, okay, fine. Well, and so I was going, he said, just keep talking to me about what are some of your other ideas. And I said, there's a hint of flavor, we're giving people hints, a few other names in between, and then finally I just said hint, and he said no, it's a 4-letter word, you'll never get that registered. And I had the secret, that another secret that I didn't know how to tell him. And again, I'm launching this company and I'm super excited about it and I want to get that sort of piece over with. And then finally I just really didn't like him that afternoon because he had, busted me on my Wawa idea.
Wow.
And so he said, so I said, I'm pregnant actually with our fourth child. And he said, wait a minute. So you've got this company, no name at this point, and you're pregnant with your fourth, and you're going to start a company in an industry that you know nothing about. And
I
you're
love it.
very marketable in tech right now, but you don't want to do that. I just want to make sure I've got all the data points
Oh,
on this.
he sounds hysterical.
Yeah. And I said, yeah, you got it. You got everything. And he said, how far along are you? And I said, I'm almost 3 months. Isn't that amazing? And he said, oh my gosh, I cannot believe it. And anyway, it was really too much. And so at that point, I said, and by the way, I've lined up childcare and I found this bottling plant in Chicago and I'm getting over my morning sickness, but it's sort of hit or miss. And it'd be really great if you came with me. Uh, and he said, okay, fine, I'll come. But, his hope was that I was going to just give up at this point, that I was going to see that it was just impossible. And we
Right.
figured we'd, go to Chicago for a couple of days. And I was also taking $50,000 out of our bank account. So I
Oh
hadn't
God.
sort of like dropped all of this on him at the time. And again, he was just sort of holding his head through the whole thing. And it was interesting because when finally, he didn't know when we went to Chicago whether or not this was all going
Uh-huh.
to, work with Hint. And he really didn't believe that it was. And he didn't think we'd get the trademarks. But as I now say quite often when I'm out speaking, that just don't listen to your lawyer or your husband about names because, if you don't try, then you won't get. And we not only got the word hint for a product name and company name, but also drink water, not sugar, which he also said was not actually going to happen. He said it's too descriptive. You'll never get it. And
And
so
now
I
what
was,
does he say?
and now he admits it. He admits that it was that he said, well, it's better than Wawa. And
Okay, I got to get back to the Wawa for a minute. So I used to say Wawa to my little ones, my babies, and
thank
then
you.
I did, and I never knew what a Wawa was. Hence, fast forward what you just said, Pennsylvania. My daughter goes to Penn State, so I know about. My girlfriend goes, "We're going to stop at a Wawa." I go, "What's a Wawa?"
That is hysterical.
So
Yeah.
when you were saying that story, I was like laughing to myself, thinking like, yeah, I never knew. Yeah, I'm not from the East Coast. I did not know. And funny enough, that's so funny.
So it's so crazy. So yeah, that is the story of Hint. And it's yeah, and today, I mean, Hint is now the largest private non-alcoholic beverage in the country that doesn't have a relationship with Coke, Pepsi, or Dr. Pepper Snapple. It's over 50
$150 million company, right? Distributed in all
plus.
50 states plus.
Yeah, plus. Yeah, and also we're, really the first company, the first beverage company that really embraced direct to consumer. So that was, again, part of my journey. I'd grown up in tech. Everybody 7 years ago said, oh, I mean, you can't sell heavy cases of water online. And I, I mean, more than anything, in one of the stories I share in the book as well, is that we just found that once you get big enough too, you're on the radar of the large soda companies. And I just at that point just said, how else can we survive? It was really more than anything, a survival for us, that we felt like it was important for us to be able to have that relationship with our customer because we were being blocked in stores. And so what's fascinating is once we actually started building this direct to consumer business and, getting a bigger relationship with Amazon as well, that's when a lot of these stores started reaching out to us because consumers were complaining that they didn't have products like Hint on the shelves and other things too. But I mean, really, I think it sort of worked in reverse, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
Where a lot of these stores, consumers were saying, I'm not going to come to your store anymore because you don't have the right products that I really want. And so that's that's been an interesting story as well, where things that we didn't expect that ultimately drove a lot of our success. And even today, I mean, we saw during the pandemic in 2020 that it was really interesting because our business, obviously, we were set up to do direct to consumer, and there was just chaos and pandemonium for our category as a whole in March when consumers were going in and basically hoarding not only toilet paper and bleach, but also water and products like
Mm-hmm.
Hint. And so during that time, there was, a lot of sort of back office stuff that the consumer doesn't know about, including electronic data transmission to actually reorder from the cash register data. So if you go into a grocery store, then it'll actually say, okay, you're low on Hint. And so then it will automatically order. And so then it will come from the distribution centers into the warehouse. Well, these systems all across the US and probably all across the world were just overwhelmed. And so there was nothing you could do about it if you were a manufacturer, other than what we did, which was send trucks in, and we just bypassed a lot of that stuff. That was my March. But then in addition to that, we had this customer database of over 1 million consumers, and we reached out and we just said, look, if your local store doesn't have Hint for some reason, number one, let us know, and number two, you can just order directly from us or on Amazon, and we'll ship it to you until these stores get it figured out. And I mean, it was crazy. It was like 80% of our customer base actually ordered a case of Hint. It was insane. And
Wow.
so that relationship with the consumer um, just escalated during this time. I mean, our direct to consumer business has almost tripled this year. So it's really been insane. A crazy year.
Oh my God, a crazy year indeed for everybody. Kara Goldin's book, she is the founder and CEO of Hint. Her book, Undaunted, Overcoming Doubts and Fears, it teaches us to deal with the uncertainty, the fear, to move forward, turn criticism into motivation. She shares so many great stories in this book too, and her journey to Hint, and just such a great book. I stare at the cover all the time. I'm like, it's such a powerful cover. And
Thank you.
and the inside of this book, just every one of your stories, it's tough. It's tough to start a business. You get scared, and you just keep moving forward past that. And you teach us that in this book, and so many other great lessons in this book. I really, really enjoyed it, and I thank you so much for sending me the Hint, because I buy it all the time. I love it.
Oh, that's so great.
And I love how it came about too. I love that you were, and I love that the health aspect of it as well. How it was born, and God, look what's happened since, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, look at all that, and you're still like, on top, but you started this trend towards it, and health. If we don't have our health, what do we really have, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. And it's something I think that is 2020 for for me, and as I think about it, I think so many categories have really changed with the what's happened to the world in 2020. I mean, certainly, video and technology